and welcome to the Insight.Tech webinar, Retail Tech 2022, the in-store digital experience. I'm Kenton Williston, the editor-in-chief of Insight.Tech and your moderator for today's session. This panel features experts from Advantech and Tech Data, who are both members of the Intel Partner Alliance, as well as a friend from Intel itself. And we will all be taking a look at the future of retail as shoppers continue to return to stores. Before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping. I'd like to let our guests introduce themselves. So, Styrbjörn, I'd start with you. Could you tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do at Advantech?
Thank you very much for the introduction, Kenton. My name is Styrbjörn Tobacka, a Swede. Head up what we call ICT services, which basically is retail, but we've also brought a certain amount of smart spaces, applications, and smart city into that. Headquartered out of Munich, but as said, a Swede residing in Stockholm. Have never worked in retail, but have sold hardware, software, and AI to retailers for the past 10 years.
Lovely. Lisa, I'll go to you next. Could you please give me a little bit about yourself?
Sure, Kenton. Thanks. Hi, I'm Lisa McGarvey. I'm the Director of Vertical Markets and Solution Development at Tech Data. I have responsibility for North America, and my team really focuses on vertical markets programs and enablement, as well as really developing solutions that align to vertical markets. And I'm excited today to talk to you about what we're seeing in the retail market.
Wonderful. And Kristen, I'll come to you last, but definitely not least.
Oh, no worries. I'm so happy to be here with my partners. I'm Kristen Call. I am the Senior Industry Advisor for that RBH means retail, banking, and hospitality. Those are my focuses. I actually did spend 25 plus years in retail. I've done almost every gig in retail that you can think of. And I'm one of my very passionate topics, and I'm excited to be here with all of you.
Fabulous. And you said retail, baking, and hospitality.
Banking, not banking, banking.
No, I knew that.
It's really early in the morning for me.
Just giving you a hard time. Okay, very good. So in today's agenda, I want to first take a look at where we are now as we're at the end of 2021. Talk a little bit about what consumer expectations are at the present moment and how those might be evolving moving forward. And in particular, have a conversation around the interchange between brick and mortar and e-commerce, and again, how that might change as we look forward. And then focus on, I think, what the key topic really of today's conversation is, in-store technology that's going to provide that really amazing shopper experience. And then I want to look a little bit at some of the implementation questions of how to bring this technology to life and how to make it work most effectively and have the best return on investment. And then, of course, as the title of this webinar suggests, talk some about where things are heading next. First and foremost, a little bit of a review of where things stand today. And of course, as we all know, the pandemic has really defined what shopping looks like over the last 18 months or so. And I would even say redefined that to a great extent. And it has had a tremendous impact on how stores operate, what kind of experiences customers are having, and pretty much everything you can think of retail related, all the way to the supply chain and all the rest. So, Styrbjörn, I'd like to start with you. What, from your perspective, do you see as being some of the biggest impacts the pandemic had on the retail experience?
Thanks, Kenton. I think I'm seeing, which isn't a new thing, but it's the absolute acceleration of the move from brick and mortar shopping to the online experience. That has been an underlying trend. We're seeing that and have seen it for many, many years, but the rate at which that, for obvious reasons, accelerated during the pandemic. Not all countries or regions have been as fortunate as me in the Nordics, where shops pretty much have stayed open all through the pandemic, and you've gone to more physical kind of measurements, i.e. putting plexiglass in front of the cashier to still allow a physical interaction. between people, but without that immediate ability to breathe on someone else. But of course, you're seeing the trend of BOPIS, buy online, pick up in store, being exchanged for curbside pickups or home delivery, all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And I think one of the key questions in my mind is how well various retailers have responded to all these new requirements. And Lisa, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. If there's any other, you think, major issues that have arisen during the pandemic, as well as how have merchants responded to these new circumstances we find ourselves in?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what Cyburn had said about, the impact of the pandemic has definitely accelerated digital transformation in retail and that growth and shift and move to e-commerce. And one of the big changes that we've seen, or acceleration of all retailers pivoting to really implement those omni-channel strategies to create and optimize things like buy online, pick up in store. This creates faster, more secure, convenient shopping experience. And these are really the types of services that help retailers remain competitive and help shoppers feel safe, right, during the pandemic. So we've seen shoppers, really adopt the curbside pickup and fulfillment. And I believe it's definitely here to stay because it makes customers feel safe and it's also convenient. And, we've seen companies across the board, the big companies like Bed Bath & Beyond, Michaels, Nordstrom, Dick's, but even local retailers. I mean, I've seen local retailers who didn't even have websites in my area build their website, spin them up, and then also offer curbside pickup because they had to, because it's crucial to the experience that they need to offer today during the pandemic and ongoing, right? And making sure that they're not playing catch up to their competitors. So, I think what's really going to be the big impact is, being precise on inventory counts and operational efficiency. So wait times. So that's really going to set certain retailers apart, making sure they get those things right and that they have the systems in place to affect those, inventory counts and wait times and be really accurate in what they're providing to their customers. I was actually reading an article and it said in Target's third quarter of 2020, their same day services grew more than 200%, adding $1 billion in incremental sales. So, those are the types of things that are making a difference right now and where we've seen retailers really pivot and change.
Yeah, totally. And one thing I think is important here is to define some of our terms up front. So, we're talking about retail tech, but of course, retail means a lot of different things. And I think, Kristen, to the point we were just joking about your title, there's banking, there's hospitality, it's quick service restaurants, it's many, many different things. And I'd love to hear from the Intel perspective, across this broader expanse of industries, what some of the key changes have been.
I mean, yeah, both all of the things that have been said right now are, I think, across the board. The in-store pickup, the online presence, the be able to shop anywhere. And those are not new themes. I don't think that the pandemic really created those themes, right? Those just enhanced the need to have those. And we've seen some of the laggards come up front and the ones up front try to even get better at those types of services. So it just really depends on those, I call them the retail sub-verticals, right? Because you've got grocery stores, big box chains, you got C stores and that, and everyone is having their own challenges because their businesses are just, they're different. And I think that I've looked at how retailers have responded. You've seen some really great innovation and, up to the challenge of what it meant. And those are the ones that have survived throughout the 2020 and into 2021. And talking about statistics, Lisa, I was reading an article back in early 2020, and it was saying that 90% of US sales still occur in the four walls. And so people still want to shop, but there is something about, I go want to go and do my research online. I want to look, I want to peer into what these products are, because that's really hard to do at the store oftentimes. And that's where we're seeing that digital transformation. If I'm standing in front of a product, I want to know more about that product. And so that's bringing kind of that digital experience into the stores. And that's, not in every single retail subvertical, but a lot of the big box and even the grocery store, being able to do recipes in real time if I'm looking at the pasta or something like that. So I think that the innovation is going to continue, where it was and where it can be. So retailers, to me, I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah, perfect. I love that point you made about the way folks are thinking differently about how they shop. In particular, this idea that, in-store shopping experience can also involve doing things on your phone or other device while you're in the store, I think has become an incredibly important part of the customer experience. So I'd love to hear, Sturman, I'll just circle right back around to you. What you see as some of these new expectations for how people are shopping today when they're in the store, how they're expecting to utilize technologies, whether it's their phones, whether it's a digital kiosk or other devices, and how that's going to impact what retailers need to provide moving forward.
Thanks, Kenton. Before I move into and reply to that question, I'd like to tie on to something that Kristen mentioned, and it's that thought about the change and the subverticals within retail, where I think it's quite clear that if you look at grocery, if you look at QSR, they have suffered the least because the Germans were stockpiling on toilet paper at the outbreak, for example. So the grocery retailers were running like crazy all the way through the supply chain, all the way up to front of store. And there it wasn't so much about the experience. It was about the need to get the goods, why they did well, even if they weren't being clever about it. So I think one of the things we are going to see as we move forward is the consumer, the customer, having been acquainted with or accustomed to the more clever, the more immersive customer experience with other retailers in other subverticals, and starting to demand this experience also from the other ones. So, I mean, if you look at it, let's face it, today, I don't need to go to a store. I can do basically anything online. I can have everything delivered to my doorstep within an hour. I can't get to the store and do what I want to do in a store and get back within an hour. So it makes absolutely no sense from that point of view, which means that I must individually desire, I must want to go to a store to have that experience. And then we're back at what you asked about, what specific technologies. I think that differs a bit. One thing is going to be about the ease. So how obstacle-free, how seamless can the retailer make my shopping experience? Everything from, obviously in COVID times, how I come in, how I find my products, how I learn about them, how I can select them, and on to Lisa's favorite subject, how I can pay for them very seamlessly and get back out of store.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Lisa, your name was invoked. I'll turn things over to you. How do you see technology playing out, in terms both of meeting the new customer expectations and to Sturman's point, just in general, how it is working back of house to make everything come together?
Yeah, I think he brought up some good points. I mean, convenience is one piece, right? I mean, and the convenience is exactly what was said, right? Ensure that you're getting that same easy experience that you got through e-commerce, that you get that in store, right? And it's fast and convenient and seamless. This includes checkout lines. No one wants to be waiting in line, right? They want tap and go payment methods, contactless payments, self-checkout. These are all natural extensions of the digital experience, and they provide fast, frictionless ways to pay with minimal lines, right? So it's that experience and having that same convenient experience, but it's also personalization, right? And personalization relies on data. And it's not just about collecting data, but really knowing how to use it. And retailers must really invest in enabling their store associates to be able to have customer profiles, know who they're talking to, instantly create personalized experiences, customize messaging on kiosks or menus when a person enters a store. Now more than ever, it's so important that employees of the stores are using more personalization when they're reaching out to their customers. And one of the best ways to build customer loyalty is through loyalty programs. And we've seen a lot of that in recent times. I mean, we've always had them, but we're seeing them even get more personalized, right? And leveraging more analytics and data to help identify more marketing opportunities. And retailers are putting more, a spin on their traditional loyalty programs. They're supporting more in-store shopping, adding more personalized offerings. You'll see early access to sales, right? Or charitable events or exclusive experiences. And that just really helps with that personalization that's so critical right now for retailers.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kristen, I know, speaking of this analytics idea, this is an area that's been very important to Intel. I think, for quite a while now, but certainly during the pandemic. And what are some of the ways in which you're seeing the idea of customer analytics and being able to deliver a better experience evolving?
Yeah, I'm going to split it into a couple of sections here. Actually, could do it in quite a few split it in different ways. But you've got your traditional ingestion of data. It's going up into your cloud. It's going into your data centers. It's getting consumed there and then extracted for statistical analysis later, right? So that's yesterday's data, today's data looked at tomorrow or in the future. What we're seeing now is that the data that is being generated at the source, which is at the store, is going to be, and analyzed there in real time, and doesn't have to necessarily go back to the cloud, because we're looking at, so much data. And do you really need all of that to go up into your cloud? Well, I think that the retailers are seeing that they can have a choice now. Now, that doesn't make the deployment or the install and putting that kind of a solution in the store easy, because how much data do you need, and how much compute do you need? All of those questions do make it a very complex challenge, but that's why we have fabulous system integrators to help solve some of those problems. And but those are where Lisa was hitting on that personalization. So is my top customer walking in the door? How many people are in line? Do I need to bring another associate up if I don't have an instant way to check out? So it's really providing not just personalization, but I think if you take a look at retailers that are complacent, I call it a little bit of complacency, where I'm going to let my customers sit in line for 3 or 4 seconds, and in 3 and 4 seconds in retail, that's like a lifetime, right? But I'm going to change that out, and I'm going to really be on top of the game and make sure that my customer, I welcome them into my store, and then I'm going to get them out quickly because they came to purchase something at my store. So I see a difference in that way for retailers to really set themselves apart from each other. So it's an interesting playing field in today's world, but those are the kind of challenges that I see that retailers are taking on.
Wonderful. And something that I'm hearing, I think, clearly from all of you is how critical the idea of having a very, very tight connection between the electronic, online, on-device experience and the physical experience have become. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about what that dynamic looks like today, where it's going next. And Kristen, I'll stick with you here. How has this balance between in-store and online shopping changed, and where do you see this going next?
Well, I think before we get to change, we have to look at how systems are either siloed or inoperable. And I think that retailers are trying to take that piece on. Some of it, again, we have retailers that are advanced in this area, and other ones are laggers. So it's really, how do I bring my systems together so that they can talk? I have my online store, and then I have my in-store, and oftentimes they are not the same, right? They're very separate. The pricing is separate, and it's a different challenge in where you're competing. And so I think retailers are really trying to look at, how can I bring my systems together? How can I allow customers to have the best pricing? Some of the same challenges that we had before 2020 still exist here in 2021. And I think they're putting a lot more focus on how to bring those systems in making them interoperable, and that they seem to the customer as one system.
Yeah, absolutely. And Steven, from the Advantech perspective, what sort of things are you seeing your customers doing? What's Advantech doing to help bring these worlds together?
Oh, what we're doing on our side is, I think it's sticking to understanding what we're good at and where we need partners. So, I mean, Advantech is a hardware manufacturer, first and foremost. So we provide the platforms, we provide the edge compute that Kristen talked about, the ability to turn the data around in store, then not necessarily sending everything into the cloud. And I really like to tie on to what Lisa said there about putting this information that you've gathered into good use with the store attendant. It is the people in the store that make the experience for the shopper, for the customer. So sending things up for statistical analysis is great. But I talk about the democratization of insights, and that is the sharing of people, of that insight with the people on the shop floor, because they are the ones that are going to make the real difference in the shopper experience. So we try to provide our platforms, be part of discussions like this, work with great partners like Tech Data, with their system integrators that sit with a special knowledge of understanding both the domain, retail, as well as being very, very versed in the systems. And I think one thing we've seen, and I don't know if this is an open-ended question to you guys who are more US-centric than I am, and we've had massive shop death throughout the UK during the pandemic. And all the headlines have been, this company been operating for 150 years and now they're gone. That entire chain has closed down. And I think part of that is because they have sat on old systems, very siloed systems, unflexible, sometimes written in programming language that is hardly around even. And it makes it so much more difficult for them to adapt. Whereas the ones that come out of the online world, even if they have a physical presence and do brick and mortar stores, typically, is my experience, have built that on more modern technology, more adaptable, and platforms that are more adaptable to at least multi-channel. I will make a claim and say that you cannot decide to be omni-channel as a retailer, because omni-channel is in the perception of the customer. You can be multi-channel, that is the strategy, and you can decide to do it by being present in multiple channels. But whether the customer gets the experience that you're one and the same, regardless of where and how they interact with you, that's really only they who can tell you whether you succeeded in it or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really want to come back. I think this question about having flexible systems integrating systems together is incredibly important. Something I want to touch on again a little bit later in our conversation. But first, Lisa, I'd love to hear, as a systems integrator, you've got a pretty broad perspective on what's happening. I think there's a really interesting question here of how merchants should even be thinking about this question, multi-channel, omni-channel. I mean, these are terms people have been talking about for years now, but my sense is, to Steerburn's point, it's really, the industry may need to rethink even what these terms mean. So Lisa, where do you see the industry needing to take this conversation next to actually deliver something that the customers truly perceive as, yes, this is an omni-channel experience where I'm getting that consistent, excellent experience, whether I'm in my home, I'm out and about, I'm in the store, regardless of where and how I'm shopping, it feels the same to me.
Yeah, no, thanks, Kenton. And I want to touch on, Kristen made a good point that physical stores are still very much a part of the customer journey, right? Customers are looking for those shopping experiences. So when we talk about omnichannel, I mean, the physical store is still an important piece of that. But I mean, when I think about omnichannel, it's really empowering retailer brands to reach consumers at every touch point of the buying experience, right? Whether it's online, in store, and providing a relevant consumer experience across all the channels wherever they want to buy, right? So that to me is what the omnichannel looks like now. I mean, that's continually changing, right? How consumers want to buy, but we know that it's critical that they want what they want, when they want it, where they want it. And that's what omnichannel is really about, making that experience across all those different purchasing ways in the buyer's journey and engaging in multiple ways across diverse platforms, understanding and ensuring that customers are getting that consistent experience. And that's what's so important. And that's where I really think a lot of the things that we talked about, providing that shopping experience in the brick and mortar, the digital, and making sure that it's seamless, frictionless. And it really comes down to personalization, right? Responding to the interests of your consumers. Make sure you understand who they are, engage with them, know what they want, and they will be more loyal and they'll come back to you as a retailer. So personalization. The other one is really about, making sure that when they do come into a store or go online, they're getting that experience that's fast, efficient, and frictionless, right? So making sure that they get that experience. And then the third is social integration. And I don't think any of us have talked about the social integration yet, but I think that's really important. And that's the next piece where we're seeing that omnichannel is really the touching audiences through social media platforms and creating more opportunities for your consumers to share content, promote your products and services, and really offers you different ways to engage and interact. So I think, that's really about, so personalization, convenience was the word I was looking for, the fast and efficient checkouts, and whether it's online or in store, and then the social integration piece. Those three pieces are really, important to the buyer's journey.
Yeah, that's great. I love the point you're making about how broad of a vision retailers really need to have to deliver an amazing experience. So I want to dive a little deeper specifically into that in-store experience and the technologies that are really making a difference there. So Lisa, I'll just stay with you here. Mm-hmm. What do you see as being some of the most critical technologies being deployed today to transform that in-store experience?
Yeah, I think we talked about, data analytics, but we didn't really get into artificial intelligence and machine learning have really introduced a new level of data processing, right? And that really deepens the business insights that retailers can use, and they can use it for personalization, but also, as we look at supply chain and logistics, artificial intelligence can be used for demand forecasting. And that's to support, the shopping experience, whether it's in store or online, to make sure that you know what inventory you have and be able to forecast that. And and also, leveraging different, cloud and hosted point of sale systems. We talked about that a little bit, but I'm really seeing artificial intelligence start to ramp up. And, you look at Amazon AI and what they've done. They've already introduced, checkout free stores. You just go in and walk out with your product because of the technology that they're using. We look at things like AI chatbots, and these are able to provide even a higher level of customer service that improve, searching. They can send notifications about new things in the store, suggest similar products. So that's, if you already bought this, you might want to look at this. And that's that personalization, right? It really focuses in on that. Price optimization, right? Stores need to stay flexible with their pricing, be able to adjust quickly for pricing or promotion. So artificial intelligence can use to be looking at those types of pricing forecasting strategies. So I think there's a lot there around AI and, also the retail supply chain, restocking, looking for different products, history of sales, looking at locations or trends, promotions, how weather impacts things, right? So a lot of opportunity in AI. And then obviously IoT still has massive potential for the retail industry. We're seeing a lot around, beacons and, the ability to leverage people's smartphones, pick up their signal, send them coupons as they enter a store that are personalized depending upon what they're looking at. Other IoT technologies, RFID tags, smart barcodes gives you visibility to where the products are. I was just reading Lululemon uses RFID tags to update and track inventory, and it's improved their inventory accuracy to 98%. So technology solutions that are critically important as we see both in store and the online experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the key things that's been really changing over the last, pick any time frame you want, very short time frame, because it's been happening so fast, are the areas of AI, machine vision. And I think those are incredibly powerful in terms of building on some of those existing technologies like beacons, RFIDs, and providing just an incredible level of visibility into how customers are behaving and how to serve them best. And Kristen, I know this is an area that's been very important to Intel, so I'd love to hear some of your perspective on how retailers, whether that's grocery stores, fashion, whatever it is, can best make use of these technologies.
Yeah, there's a lot of different areas that computer vision can make a big difference for retailers and enhance the employee. And then, as we have seen in the news, hiring is a big problem right now, and getting people as an associate is been challenging. So one of the ways that computer vision can help, it can augment the associate. It can also enhance the customer experience and the quality. So, for example, we're seeing computer vision being deployed to watch the food areas, right? So how is the cook prepping the food? Are they cross-contaminating? Or all the way to loss prevention, watching and making sure that the items get scanned and alerting if someone is doing a swap with products, or the 4011 or whatever, with the banana trick. So a lot of ways that we can utilize cameras to be able to do operational efficiencies, or help associates know when shelves are empty, or help customers understand what a product is. Or cameras can be used in so many different ways, and that computer vision is we're seeing it deployed now. And like you said, Kenton, 2 years ago, no retailer would have thought about deploying a computer vision solution. And today we're starting to see it deployed more and more to solve a lot of different types of problems.
Yeah, awesome. And Steerburn, I'd love to hear more from you. And particularly, you've talked a lot about helping the personnel in store. And, Kristen's absolutely right. It's been very, very tough in every industry, but certainly retail is leading here. It's very, very difficult to hire people, get folks trained up, get people with the right experience. So how do you see the technologies helping them? And, more broadly, where do you see some of these leading edge technologies like AI and machine vision playing a role?
As you pointed out, I mean, Lisa, again, there are many areas where we very clearly have one and the same vision, and is that the importance of the store staff for the experience of the customer. When I hear about the technology and all the great things that can happen with it as well, I think there is a but in here, and the but being that some retailers will not have done their homework and will not have understood the key point that it is about creating the customer experience. And how are you going to cater to the needs of desires of the customer if you don't understand them? And there, if you think that just implementing technology, be that state of the art or whatever, is going to save your customers from voting with their feet and taking their business elsewhere, then you need to be very careful. But as we pointed out, said by Kristen, said by Lisa, RFID, we talk about vision. There are different types of vision. Us in Europe being very focused, of course, on GDPR and integrity of people. We don't like cameras, especially not in the UK, even though where it's the most CCTV covered country in the world, next to North Korea, probably. We're still looking at it, and there are alternative technologies. So LiDAR, for example, that will give you the benefits of the computer vision without actually being able to see you. It will detect an object, it will classify it as a person. Obviously, you're losing out on information on that. You will not be able to do a gender classification. You will not be able to do an age group classification of that object, but you'll be able to recognize that you have a person, and you can then track their behavior in store. And why is that important? Well, it's because, and again, now I'm taking very much the perspective of the customer rather than the underlying retail systems, and that's just my passion, and that's why I'm going in. We are social constructs as individuals, so it's difficult to ask us what we want and how we behave in store, because you're not necessarily getting a truthful answer. One being the fact that we simply haven't reflected over what we do, and therefore we're inadvertently misleading in the information we're conveying. And another one is the social construct that, well, if I'm heading into a liquor store and meeting my Sunday school teacher on the street outside, maybe I'd be more prone to walking past rather than going in. So there are multiple aspects of that. And there are technologies that allow us to get the benefits of the IoT sensors without necessarily having them. So I guess what I'm saying is that there is a time and a place for all of these technologies, more or less. And the key is you get the real values when you bring them all together. So I talk about the 3 C's when you talk about insights. It's the comparing, combining, and correlating of different data sources, because that gives you the same as a 1D, 2D, 3D picture, gives you a different level of completeness of your understanding. And when you then bring in the RFID on the product side and start building that entire system, it becomes extremely powerful.
Absolutely. And you've given me a perfect segue into what I wanted to talk about next, which are the challenges associated with these technologies. And I think there are 2 important fronts. one of which, Steerburn, you mentioned, it's not just technology for technology's sake, right? It has to make sense to the customer. Right? Their experience has to be good. They have to be comfortable with it. And then, of course, there's just the raw challenges that we brought up earlier. And Steerburn, I'll thank you for this as well. Some of the integration elements, right? Like everyone has their existing systems. How do you incorporate the new things you want to do right alongside with what you've got in your existing infrastructure? And then, of course, just the complexity of everything we're talking about. There's a lot of moving parts here. How do you successfully implement and bring all these things together? So, of course, these are great questions for a systems integrator to talk about. So, Lisa, can you give me some of your thoughts on some of the key challenges you're seeing your customers encounter and some of the main thoughts they can keep in mind as they're considering how to move forward?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're really seeing not just in retail, but in all industries, right? The amount of data gathered by businesses is growing at an alarming rate, right? So, but the number of staff available to analyze it is staying the same or less, right? So retailers need to look at that. And what's important then is making sure all the data is being used in a correct way and not contributing towards the data silo problem, right? To some of the problems that you talked about, and finding the right technology solutions that can handle the amounts of data being generated and ensure that it's supporting things that retailers need as far as, marketing efforts and personalization. So we're starting to see, and the market's starting to see, the data scientist approach, right? We're seeing more retailers focus on hiring data scientists for more of those integrated marketing approaches, being able to leverage that data. And, data is only going to become more prevalent as time goes on. So we need to, it's part of that whole omni-channel view and what we need to focus on as retailers. So, that's definitely what we're seeing from a data perspective, right? And again, it's not just the retail industry, but we've seen that they're really focusing more on that, trying to do more with less and get those data scientists, lined up to help them understand how to leverage the data that they have. Especially as we're heading into the holidays now, right? It's gonna be a little bit critical to start getting ahead of these things and really looking at what are some of the things that they already have in place that they can leverage and really double click on, right? To support, if we look at what's going on, right now, I just read an article that I think over 50% of shoppers, are already done their Christmas shopping by the end of October. And, I don't know about you, but I keep seeing shop early, right? Because of all the logistics issues. So making sure that those technologies are in place for what's coming right away, right? So making sure that you ramp up your curbside offers, your buy online, pick up in store, making sure that you have your inventory control systems in place, preparing for what's to come in the next few months with, and even in the next month, right? For the early shopping. So, I mean, luckily there is a lot of AI-based technologies available to retailers. And we do specialize in helping our channel partners have an ecosystem that they leverage with partners like Intel and Advantech, where they can provide the right solutions, looking at the retailer's needs and just help them determine what are their business needs and what is the right technology to help support those business needs.
Perfect. And speaking of the ecosystem and Intel's role, Kristen, I'd love to hear from you. Of course, you've got kind of that early view into the front leading edge of technology. And where do you see some of the biggest hurdles for retailers as they're implementing these technologies, and what can they do to overcome them?
Yeah, I think that if you break it down, so many different aspects, right? So, Steerborn, you said it really well. you've got to look at the problem. What is the problem that the retailer is trying to solve? And what are their social hurdles? There's legal hurdles. There's all kinds of hurdles that they have to consider when they're trying to deploy these types of solutions. And, you can easily cross the bridge when you're talking about a business problem and then technology to adopt to solve that business problem, right? And that's a big challenge right there, first of all. And in retail, if you want to take a look at the structure of retail, oftentimes you have your business and your IT, and they're not the same, right? Then oftentimes depending on the relationship, that could be a big hurdle just to go in and talk to the right person about how, what are the challenges and how can we help solve those challenges? So that's one piece. The other piece is once you get to, okay, this is the problem that we want to solve, that's to understand all the data that you need to ingest. And it's usually coming at the edge. And a lot of retailers are still trying to evaluate, what does that mean? What hardware do I need to have, and how do I ingest that data, and how do I keep it safe? Where's the security pieces that I don't want to get my fish tank hacked? I'm sure we've all heard that in the news, right? So there's a lot of things to consider there. And then once I get it into a place where I can actually look at the data, back to Lisa's point of data ingestion and getting the insights, how do I then put it in a way that is consumable and to whoever the person that needs to see this data. So there's a big journey here, and that's why we partner with folks like Advantech and Tech Data. They're here to help solve a lot of those challenges. And Intel, we walk side by side, bringing our architects and our I call them super smart people and in our org. That's one of the great things I love working at Intel is everyone is up for the challenge to support our retailers, to support our partners in order to solve these challenges.
Absolutely. And so I'd like to talk about some practical examples of where you folks have done these things. And Stuart, I'm particularly interested, one of the topics that we have touched on, and in particular, you've brought up, in the European context, the German context in particular, how challenging it's been for some retailers to update their systems and to move into the current era. Do you have some examples that you can share with us, or maybe an example, given the time we have, of where Advantech has worked with a customer to help them along this journey?
I think what we've done that with several of the retailers throughout Europe, had been to try, and this is back to Kristen's point about addressing the correct problem. So I mean, a lot of the investments that were taken were driven by the pandemic and driven by compliance rather than a sound business mind in, if I make my investment now, what am I going to get out of it? Because the pandemic, hopefully, at least, will reside, and we'll see a maybe not the same world as before, but we'll see something that is more similar. And you've had those that have invested in facial cameras just linked to a touch screen that shows whether you have an augmented temperature, or just showing how many people are in store as an isolated. Then we're back to the silo discussion. If you instead, which we then have tried to do, leveraging again the ecosystem that we have around us and the different insights and inputs our partners can put into this, make them understand that if they do invest in something that will have a business value in the post-pandemic world, maybe going for a slightly more expensive integrated system that allows them to gather data and insights throughout the store, edge servers to do some of the analysis, and maybe even to not just do an analysis, but turning the local insights, the in-store insights, into actionable, compelling events for the consumer, they can build on that. They will still solve the basic function of compliance. How many people are in store? Does an individual have the right to enter the store, etc.? But their investment has a long lifespan afterwards. And I think that those are discussions and the most interesting ones that we've been having with retailers throughout Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think those two ideas of having enough capability, having enough flexibility to not only do the job you need to do today, meet the pressing need, but give yourself the freedom to do something more beyond that are incredibly important. And Lisa, I'm wondering, maybe you've got some examples that build off that, or just in general, showcase where retailers should be thinking as they move forward.
Yeah, I think as we all said, we'll continue to see that accelerated digital transformation initiative in retail. And as a part of those strategies, we've all talked about AI and edge compute playing a key role to automate day-to-day tasks, provide real-time response, enhance the consumer experience, as we've all mentioned. And then, I don't know that we've touched as much on the health and safety centric solutions, but we'll, continue to see a focus there as, satisfying the customer, still, making sure that they're safe, healthy. So we'll still see that, but I just hit on a few things that we've recently seen, more specific solutions. So inventory control and theft prevention, leveraging RFID technology. We're seeing a lot of focus there, the ability to automate inventory, asset tracking for loss prevention, for real-time visibility into where assets are, the location, managing that in real time, 24/7, track it by date or time or location. So we're seeing a big emphasis on that. Smart cameras and computer vision. Kristen talked about computer vision. That's so important right now to, being able to monitor in-store occupancy, the flow of shoppers in store, and also, again, that focus on safety and social distancing. Those smart cameras and computer vision can be used to support that as well. And then really we've seen an uptick in interactive media, which we haven't really talked a lot about, but, displays, and specifically that digital signage that really supports the customer experience in retail. And those digital displays have now become more engaging, more informative. They don't require physical touch. So we're seeing more focus on that interactive digital signage and digital displays to create those more personalized experiences. And then one thing I would like to note is, I think partnerships are really important and really support innovation. Not only partnerships on the technology side of the house between, companies like Tech Data, Intel, Bantech, our channel partners, but also partnerships in retail. And I think a good example of that I, I've read a lot about it is Kohl's and what they're doing with major brands like Sephora and Lego, and to drive foot traffic, and Amazon. Those type of partnerships really drive the innovation that we're starting to see for the future of retail. And it's needed both on the retailer side as well as the technology side. And it's needed for us to enable to help our retailers. No one can do it alone. And I think that's the big thing.
Absolutely. And so just to wrap up our conversation, I would like to talk a little bit more about how we move together as an industry into this new future. I think, to your point, Lisa and Sturber and Kristen, you've both touched on this point. It's an effort that's going to require a lot of different technologies, a lot of different experts, and I think really a full ecosystem of folks working together to move into this future. And Kristen, I'd love to hear, of course, you're working with Intel, as part of Intel, with some of these big marquee names, what you see folks doing to put in place, this foundation we've been talking about to enable you to move into this great unknown that is the future of the retail industry.
Yeah. So, if you look at some of the retailers that I call them, they're the leaders, right? They're blazing the path. You've got your Walmart, your Targets, those are not just retailers, they're now software companies, right? So we see this, Amazon, they're the ones who set that standard. And so it's a big question, are they a retailer or a technology company? And the lines are becoming blurred. And you look at this slide, the robots are, they're not far away. We're seeing them in the warehouses now. To be able to do pick and pack, to be able to bring those products up front for dark stores. Those kinds of technologies are real, and they're being tried and tested and being implemented. So we're being asked now from retailers, how do I now have a robot to actually put products on my shelf? And I'm like, that sounds a little futuristic still. We're not quite there, but that's where we all want to get. And I think it's really understanding how this technology can enhance. I don't hear any retailer trying to say, I want to replace. I don't want to replace a person. I want to enhance a person. I want to make their job quality better, right? I think the market now is, I have to provide an experience for my associate. And so how can I have technology help in those cases? So it's, I don't know about you guys, but I'm old. And when I think about this kind of stuff, this was like, Buck Rogers and, way back when. This is exciting future of where retailer really wants to take it. But yeah, the last mile, we're looking at autonomous vehicles. I think Walmart just announced a partnership here in Phoenix that they're going to be looking at autonomous delivery, and Amazon's been doing it for some time, thinking about how do I fly the product to you. So those are real. Companies are really looking at these types of things. There's a lot of challenges, of course, but as you live in that agile world, if you don't try, you'll never fail, and if you don't fail, you'll never succeed. So I'll pass it. Yeah, so exciting stuff.
Absolutely.
I don't think you're that far away, actually, when it comes to replenishing the stores. I was on a customer visit. I actually got to travel in the Netherlands last week and stayed in the Van der Valk hotel, where the hotel restaurant had a robot busboy. So basically, the waiter would take the dishes once we finished eating and place them on a very silent, elegant, dark, shiny busboy that came gliding across the carpet. And that when she then placed the dishes on that, very quietly took its round, following the outer perimeter of the restaurant, and disappeared into the kitchen. So you've got a little bit of assistance there in actually deploying the dishes from the table to the robot, or vice versa if you were to take it the other way. But also the autonomous delivery vehicles. Yes, Advantic are involved in a number of those kinds of projects. So it's definitely a reality, and a lot more companies than what you would regularly see are involved in looking at these as real business opportunities.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Lisa, I'll give you an opportunity to kind of have a last word here. What do you see coming in the surprisingly not so distant future, and what are some of the things retailers can do to ensure their readiness?
Yeah, so there's a buzzword out there. It's called phygital, and it's the physical and digital at the same time, a completely connected world. And I think that retailers need to really be thinking about that. And it's all about looking at affirmations from social media, focusing on implementing technology that supports an incredibly personalized experience. And, everything needs to be customized for the consumer. And there's going to be a lot more in-store experience as well as online. And I think, as we think about that, and as the technology remains promising and retailers see that promise, there's still a lot of work to do, right? There's still a lot of work to do to move beyond experimentation, of things like robots, like we just talked to being able to actually deliver tangible business value. And those are the tangibles that are going to be able to help retailers extract that value from data across all of their organizations. And that's where we can really help. That's where partners like Tech Data, Advantech, Intel can help our retailers, because we focus on specialization. And we have the ecosystem of skills and capabilities across the business continuum to help reduce complexity and really help retailers monetize the opportunity leveraging technology.
Wonderful. Well, that's a perfect place for me to say thank you to all of you for joining us today. And I'd also like to say thank you to our audience for listening in. And if you'd like to know more about the latest and greatest in retail technology, and in particular, the latest coming from Tech Data and Advantech, you can navigate over to insight.tech to learn more.